All right, so we now have quorum, and Chief Leroy is going to come and open our meeting in a good way. John.
Oh, John?
So review of minutes at next board meeting.
Not today?
Not today.
Okay.
We don't have the iPad.
Oh, okay. Good afternoon. Hope you enjoy your lunch. I want to call the meeting to order, our annual General Assembly. And before I call on John Jerome, I just want to send my sincere condolences, Sharon and John, for the loss of your son, Nash Nidaba. Grew up with him since kindergarten, primary. And I just want to send, on behalf of all of us, Sharon, John, Miss Skoltiek. Awesome assault this then. Yeah. So I want to call upon John Jerome to do a opening prayer so we can start our assembly.
Well, Samo, and again, thank you very much for those kind words. Gizok, walalia, la dilma walia. Well, dazwa and dandez, ko gizadu, akizadu, msidwodan, gnabad noi. Ekwana, ilankide de Digula, Dejino Dak, de Gnamus no, Kigamana, Mubas Kigamana, Eluija, Desit one night, Lunuega dealer. I'm sitting one, Nova Scotia one. Gnamas no trade education. Ekwan Munastar Tita, I Ginok, whatever exotic, Akoi. Chenum Tea Josh Gnasida. No guardian. Oli deel ki wigama, David de miduni janit, oli deel ki nemo. Idawe Willain, Adawe Mejay, Jenny Dano, yea, so one Jenas in one. No Dano one Chiachkine. I wish to thank everybody for letting me be part of this. Some of the work that all our communities and MK have been doing, especially in the area of treaty education, and how much impact that has, and the importance of understanding our treaties and the rights that emanate from it. To the point where the dialogue is now starting. And for those who, we had one young man hurt himself while trying to cause damage. And I pray and I think so much of his family, and if he has children, he's going to have to live with what he's done the rest of his life, as are his family. We've lost many loved ones. I've lost my son recently. We've lost many loved ones during this year, many elders. And I always say, if you lose an elder, we always hope that there's a young one coming forward with those skills. That's also an important area. And I was no Ginijanna, Daniel Nuisin, Daniel Nuyanki Dasi, Clive's cheat or I would have exit. And on that note, no chin was so been Chip to always in Megiddo me was so done. Chip to eat him, we will on the mole, will let us send Nadia was a wakey. They skadaski chip to an they skadle mammy and game. The Lamo of Neil as a meagle of Nieskis who clamor to spring when you know. The Liavic Starchi were giving a midday, El Kilnis can be a vixic twin. El Whale Tia Morgan in Mage when Sudim Tigali. Guess what when you go well, you will gash. At Liash Walalia.
Claudia, John Jerome. Aha. So welcome, Julie Dach. Also those online. Hello. Can you guys hear me good over there? Can you guys scream so I can hear from the other room? Well, I didn't hear anything. Are we lagging? I'll hear them soon. You'll hear me soon. I'm just going to review the agenda quickly here. We don't have the minutes, so we're going to review the minutes at our next Board of Directors meeting, Chiefs, okay? So we will be doing that. So I'm going to table the minutes. And I'm going to I just want to share something real quickly. The Grand Chief and Jigepton, along with Chief Bob and Blair and Shara and some staff, we just came from the Province House or Governor's House, across from the Governor's House. We just renewed a MOU with Treat Education, the one we signed 5 years ago, and we renewed the Treat Education. And hopefully it's not another 5 years, but I told them as long as the river flows and the grass grows, Treat Education will continue. And they agree with it, and it's going to be there forever. And that's a good thing. And I was able to address the two ministers, along with the Premier and the Grand Chief as well, to the importance of Treat Education today, what the things are happening at Saunderville, at St. Peter's. So it's really important that the whole country, the whole world is watching, talking about our treaty rights, or talking about our people. So it's really important as Mi'kmaq scholars, educators, directors, principals, we become available and reach out to our non-Indigenous partners, because I did a call out today to all the schools to reach out to us, to work together, to learn about treaties, to learn about our rights, where we've been. And it's really important that our kids, children in the school, we have to draw the line about racism. Racism is happening, and it's very rampant now because of what's happening down there in the fishing community. And the kids feel it in the school. So it's really important. I asked the Premier, to direct all schools, all principals and teachers to learn about us, to learn about the Mi'kmaq, about these treaty rights. And that way they will understand each other. Our children will understand each other, and they'll understand our treaties. And if that's successful, we will able to, I don't think we'll be able to get rid of racism, but they'll have a better understanding of who we are and what these treaties are, our sacred documents, we call them. So we were able to address that. And for Treat Education past 5 years, I want to thank you all for those. It was a lot of hard work developing curriculum plans and lesson plans. And we have a speakers bureau as well. So we have a lot of work to do to educate this province in all schools. And we asked them, MK and all of us will be available, and our elders will be available to go in their schools and to educate them about who we are, about our treaties, especially this time around, because of the racism we're facing now. It's getting ugly. And I told the Premier, even just yesterday, I experienced discrimination, racism. Me and Chief Wilbur and I were on the phone, and I won't say which company, and we're just shocked and appalled of what we witnessed from businesses. They don't want to have anything to do with us because of what's happening. And it's very unbelievable of what's happening. So we need to step up and continue, instead of using revenge or fighting back on hate or racism. That's not who we are as Mi'kmaq. We have to continue have that discussion. It's very uncomfortable. I hear Chief Andre always says that, very uncomfortable talk to learn about our history, but it has to happen. And even if it starts with an argument, but we have to continue until our partners from the non-Indigenous community understands. Once they understand our treaties, because it'll benefit all peoples, and that way we will move, all our children will work together in the future. It's about them. So I just want to let you know what I know we were kind of late coming back, so we just came from there. It was live feed. So if you go to, if you want to watch it later, we have a live feed, the video posted on Shara's page, the MK page, Mi'kmaq Nui.
Sounds better on the other one.
On the Assembly.
Yeah.
It's also on the Nova Scotia Assembly page. It's also on there. So if you want to tune in and watch all the speeches happen, and it's a good day today that we signed that MOU again and for treat education, and we also pushed for language legislation to start the process as well. So from that, I'll welcome all of you here at the assembly, and I'm going to call upon Blair to start our day off.
Malalin Sahmo. And we have our directors, your directors of education are in the next room, so they get to see us through video. The presentation of our annual report, as seen at your tables. We're very fortunate to be able to gather, but of course we are not able to gather similar to last year, and so we're missing our partners. I want to give a warm thank you to Ann Bird, who retired in March, and so she has always been a big fan of our events and has always been a good Indigenous Services Canada partner to us, and so we wish her a really good retirement, and we certainly miss her this year. Over the past year, MK, we have focused this annual report and this strategic plan, and it was a 4-year development. And so it was a lot of work. We've increased teacher mentoring in Mi'kmaq schools, provided more programs in communities, created partnerships with institutes of higher learning, offered tutoring for all Mi'kmaq students, provided career and trades counseling and information for all students, and we increased services and resources for student services to provide programs for our diverse learners. I thank all of the staff in this journey and all of our partners and communities in the success of this strategic plan and the conclusion of this strategic plan. I am very happy to be on a new path forward. And as you see in your attachments, or as we'll circulate later, the new vision and the new mission for Mi'kmaq Nui and how we're going to get there in 10 years. I see this vision being, we've set the bar and we've set the bar high, and many of you in 1996 and those mid-90s set the bar high, and we've reached it. We've reached every goal that we've aspired to reach. And so it's now time to set the bar higher, and together with all of you. So I would like to open with a video. It wouldn't be an AGA without a video. And so let's take a look.
Just know you're not alone, 'cause I'm gonna make this place your home. Settle down, it'll all be clear. Don't pay no mind to the demons, they fill you with fear. The trouble in my drag you
so many wonderful memories of last year, and a really big milestone that happened last year was the opening of the Pictou Landing School. They opened their doors in February. We still haven't had a grand opening due to COVID, but we will get there. Hopefully in the spring, we will be able to see and celebrate with Pictou Landing, their beautiful school. So I'm going to welcome up the following presentations to you based on our annual report. Academic Services, Lori-Ann Sylvester. Mi'kmaq Language, Michelle Marshall-Johnson. The Finance presentation, Michelle Smith. Performance Measurement, Dave Peters. The First Nation Help Desk, Alan McKenzie. Post-Secondary, Ann Syllaboy. Sports and Recreation, Tex Marshall. Student Services, Janine Marshall. And then we'll conclude with some goals and objectives for this year. And so without further ado, we will invite Lori-Ann up. Perfect. Dessert time, good time. Oh. This mic doesn't quite fit, so it like.
I thought it was like, okay. I just don't want to keep turning my head looking at the screen. Just 1 second here. Oh, I do. Oh, yes, Alan. Thank you, Alan. All right. So as Blair said, we extended our strategic plan for another year. So we had a 4-year plan last year. So everything that I will report today for academic services is just that 1-year extension. Oh yes, it's working. Except I have to click my computer too. So remember when we did the FNSSP review, I think it was 2018, well, 6 of those recommendations in that review have been addressed by our team. So I think that's a big accomplishment with our academic services team. And so, you know, they worked hard, and we're still working on those last 2. They're in progress right now. And part of that work is involved in the pilots that are going on in Eskasoni, Pictou Landing, and Sibiganagati. Those are the Mi'kmaq student support strategies that came out of that FNSSP review, and we have Jim Gunn working closely with our communities, especially with not communities, Eskasoni. He's working with Eskasoni on that plan. So that's resuming now. We had a little delay because of COVID, and everyone understands that we're delayed in every area, but we're going to continue with that and accomplish those goals. So my report speaks to 4 programs of the 7 that I oversee. So I oversee 7 programs, but the other 3 programs and those goals are going to be presented by their program leads today, and that's Dave and Janine and Ann. So they're not in my report, but they're going to be doing their own, or presentation, I should say. So we'll start off with our numeracy goal and all the activities, all the numeracy activities. Oh, sorry, I keep forgetting. Sorry. Okay. Right slide. Okay. Keep reminding me, Julian. Thanks. So yes, we'll start off with the numeracy goal. So all of these activities that have been going on in numeracy are extended from last year's strategic plan. So Bob and our coaches, Kyla and Charlene, have been working on areas of coaching, assessment, bringing Mi'kmaq culture into the math, and professional learning. So you'll see that more in the next strategic plan, where we're going to develop our own assessments, and more integration of Mi'kmaq culture into the math. And we're following those strategic plans closely, so we're really, we're doing them quarterly reports, and we're gonna be sure that those areas are met. For the literacy goal, Brenda, she must have saw this coming, because she started online PD with her teachers last year. So she did a lot of, and these were PD sessions that they can do at their own pace and at their own time. And it was perfect timing with the pandemic now, because now we're moving into that, and a lot of teachers are doing their PDs online. So she got ahead of us in that, and that's great. And so, you know, along with continuous work around assessments and professional learning, classroom libraries, reading and writing activities, Brenda's doing a lot of work in that area. But we also have the elementary area, and we just hired a new elementary literacy consultant at the end of last year, so she's just in time for our new strategic plan, so she'll be in that for next year. The classroom assessments, with Sheldon, he's been working with individual schools, not all schools yet, but we have adopted a tool from the province, classroom assessment charts, and what Sheldon does with those is he works with the individual teachers on looking at the literacy and numeracy data and how to put it into kind of an organized way to really see what areas are needing attention in those areas in literacy and numeracy. So he's been working with, also with our consultants, the numeracy and literacy consultants, and really looking at in depth at the data and asking questions and seeing what the data is telling us and helping us to drive the instruction. And the technology, we had, well, this is kind of Alan. Alan's no longer with us. Well, academic services, he's with us, but he's doing bigger and better things now. He's the director of the help desk, so, but that's good. He's done a lot and left us a lot, like with our schools. He set them all up with online learning and with devices and Google Classroom. And so that's another thing. Like if we didn't do that, I think a lot of our schools would have been a little bit lost when we had the started the pandemic. So with all the work that Alan has done with our schools, we're really benefiting from that. We also have a technology coach that was, she was hired last year during this 1 year, and she works directly with schools, Kim McKinnon, and she, there was so much work around getting the devices out to the schools and teaching students and our teachers how to use the devices that we needed to hire someone else. So we have Kim on board for that. With wellness, Rebecca Sirocco was hired. We had a lot of new hires, so she was hired as a coordinator for the wellness. And she started off with a wellness conference at the very beginning of the year. So it was an MK-wide conference, and it went really well. We probably have some things that we could improve on, and we had a lot of participation, but it was done well. After that, she did a follow-up and talked to all the communities and you know, connected with them on their individual needs as far as wellness goes. So I wanted to, sorry, I forgot to flick it. So I wanted to bring attention to, I kind of used these and didn't ask permission to, but we have paintings that we had Loretta Gould do, and we're going to brighten up our new building with these paintings, so I figured it was an opportunity, so I threw them in my presentation. So I have to acknowledge and thank Loretta Gould for the beautiful artwork, and you'll see these in our new building, so just wanted to acknowledge that it wasn't my work. And Wilaliag. All done.
Wala Gloria. In these photos, these paintings that you see up here, there are 7, and the 7 of them reflect the new direction. They reflect the new mission, the new vision, the goals that Mi'kmaq Rāmaniwē aspires to implement and to achieve over the next 10 years. So beautifully done, and we hope to see some swag in the near future. Going to welcome Michelle Marshall Johnson, Mi'kmaq language. Here we go.
Mine is not as colorful as hers is.
Will
I said I wanted to go first. I said I wanted to go first.
will that clicker?
Well, Ollie. Okay, here we go. Because I think I have to click at the same time, right? Okay, for the first part of oh, I gotta click it. Did I just click it? Oh, here we go. You know, you put a lot of thought and you try to do a presentation. We're always saying, oh, it better be short. I said, make it short and sweet, they said. So when we talk about traditional knowledge, which is what's happening with our schools and our communities, we said traditional knowledge was never meant to stay in the past. We must bring it into the past so that everything becomes meaningful in our lives and in our communities. So I kept asking the staff, what would you like to add? You know, this is not just me speaking. What would you like to bring forth? Like when we do the presentation, because you all have it in front of you, what the reports are. So I said, you know, so we added little things. But this kept coming up this morning, and I just added this in this morning. I took something out and I added. And it's one that it's highlighted in, you see it's highlighted dark, I don't know if you can see it. But it says, and this is from my mother's. Now it's strange because today is the 2nd anniversary of my mother's passing. And she was in my head all day, all morning. And I said, oh my God, she's telling me to put that in there. Because if I don't, I said, she's going to meet me in the next world and say, so I said I had to put it in there. And she always said this. She said, the Mi'kmaq language is the key of our actions, how our actions unfold. Each word is much deeper than only taking care of an object. Animacy brings connection, such as that actions fit actions. Like everything is in the picture, right? And that we're always mindful of that. And she said, we have gifts. Everybody gets gifts, no matter what age you are. But the first gift that we get is love. It's the gift of life and is love. And for example, it's built into language. Let's take care of this. Like we love someone else. The action is care. Worry about what you do. The action is guided. You know, so these are the words that, you know, my mother, that's the most precious gift that we could give anyone. Our Creator has given us that. We give this to our children, our friends, our colleagues, our families. You know, without this gift, who would we be if none of us have received love? And I always tell students, you know, when I used to be a principal one time, they say, why would you care when my mother doesn't even care? Well, if your mother didn't care, you wouldn't be here talking to me. You're here. She must have loved you and cared for you in some shape or form. So I said, you know, there's love in all that we do and all that we, so South Sudi Belkigana. So I said the Mi'kmaq language staff are committed to ensuring that all communities in Nova Scotia are supported and that their language needs are met. So we use a lot of our elders in we had a youth conference. We always make sure that there's an elder, and they have such beautiful humor. It's just, you know, you learn so much from them in a playing of a Walters game than you would if you sat and listened to a conference. You know, there's always a lesson into what they teach without you even you really realizing that they're trying to teach you something. It only goes, you know, they want to tell you, but they don't want to tell you directly, but they'll make sure you get the message. So we said, I'm gonna move mine. So Dantelolti. So it says, it's how we are and who we are. Our Mi'kmaq language culture is built on a long-term vision, and our decisions were made for the next 7 generations in mind. So I just wanted you to think about this. We talk about what's to come, but our ancestors were so smart in what they thought out for us in the next futures to come. So it's 7 generations. 7 generations equals to 840 years. 1 generation is 120 years. So if you look at it, I don't know if you can see, it says the great-grandparent and the great-grandparent and the grandparent, that's 20 years. Then you got grandparent and parent, that's 20 years. Then it's the parent and the child, another 20 years. Then you got the unborn of the unborn of unborn is another 20 years. Then it's unborn of the unborn, and then you go / unborn of the unborn, unborn. So elders are always saying, for every 120 years, this happens, and we still do this 840 years, and they said the cycle starts again. So once you finish that 7 generations, then we start considering another seven generations. So we may be long past I may not make it to be a great-great-great-grandparent, but I know that our leaders and our communities will flourish in doing that and what's best for us and our children. So elders in the communities are committed to sharing their knowledge, their wisdom, and especially their love of the Mi'kmaq language and culture. That's something that all elders are so willing to share and so willing of giving. Okay. And then we talked about, the traditional Mi'kmaq lessons. The traditional Mi'kmaq lessons are being shared and taught within our schools today, which is awesome to see. We have students that are playing Waltez. We have the Master Apprentice program, and now we have the Junior Mentor Apprentice. So peers teaching peers. So it's a really good thing that's happening within the organization, and that we're hoping that in the next 5 years or the next 10 years, every community would have experienced that mentor and junior mentor apprentice program. If some people are not sure what it is, that somebody teaches 400 hours to a non-speaker, a speaker teaches a non-speaker, and then once the non-speaker is done their 400 hours, it's their job to teach somebody else in their community. So it's something that, we're hoping that's going to be, we'll all be fluent by the end of, hopefully. So we must preserve our resources, and now that it's being preserved through technology, workshops, networking, and teachers. And I know some of you have heard of me a lot of talking about technology. I have a grandson in Toronto. He only speaks Mi'kmaq and he only speaks Spanish, and that's because of technology. He'll call me up. He talks to his dad in the evening. His mother is Spanish, so she speaks Spanish all day. So when he says, I'm sick of talking to Dad, Giju, Basiwadi, Dad. I'm tired of talking to Dad. So he'll call me 4 times a week. We'll converse in Mi'kmaq back and forth. He's in Toronto, I'm here, wherever, it doesn't matter. So technology plays a really, really good role. It can be used positively. Facebook, I think, is kind of can be positive, but it's kind of drastic sometimes. So I encourage my children not to go on, but I say, you can go on, but just be real careful of it. So I'm thinking the technology that we can use that. And then my grandson gets to converse with my father. My father's 83, so he gets to converse with him. So we got to use technology. This is where Alan plays a big role in all of our organization. The technology is wonderful. And our kids in all the MK schools have this, and it's really a wonderful tool. So I'm thinking we just keep pushing forward and unuis utinage on the computers. And then we said, we had programs. Okay, elders are teaching our students in classrooms through storytelling, playing Walters, and teaching how to pick medicines. Just simple things like that. We've had our cultural nest. I know I'll do the next report, but our cultural nest, just to give you a little example of how much teachings that go on in our elders. Sugar was teaching us Walters, and there were students there that were just flabbergasted by the game. And she's such a wonderful person, and she has so much humor. She's so funny. So, and the kids are laughing at her, saying, I really like that old lady. I said, don't call her that. I said, why do they call her Sugar? I said, I don't know her name behind Sugar, but I said, she's pretty sweet, isn't she? Oh, I never thought of it that way, they said. And then I wanted to acknowledge my staff. Without the staff, they're so passionate in what they do and so passionate in their goals and their objectives that I wanted you to see that. Miss Gay. Where did I go? Here they are. So, and our language team is a little bit bigger, and we have sports with us, and we have Treaty Ed, and they all contribute to each other on what we do in our planning stages. For example, if I'm struggling with, kidsig in the school, and, Tex has so much to contribute. Terry is a new employee within our organization, so he has so much resources that he shares. So it's really nice to see that we're all working together, and I know with academic services, so we're all kind of like one big family, and we like to make a joke, nobody gets left behind. So, and Miranda's are with early childhood, so it's really good. So you can go down the list, and sometimes people forget what people's roles are. They'll say, "Dalugad nednegam, dalugad nednegam." So I said, I just want you to see that. I want to acknowledge them because they're an awesome team. I really appreciate them. And they told me to cut it under 5 minutes, so I'm doing that. And then I just said, we'd like to empower all Mi'kmaq across Nova Scotia. We're looking into more of the schools off reserve. We're working more with them. We're working with the department so we can connect with those students and the teachers who are teaching them. We continue to promote, preserve, and revitalize the Mi'kmaq language. You know, please feel free to contact us at any time for any of your needs. Even if you just want to know how to spell a word, or it doesn't matter. We're open books. We'd love to help, and we're all passionate about the language, and we hope we can help you. And that's it. Tahoe. Walalio.
Walalio, Michelle. On to our finance presentation. And Michelle Smith will be delivering our finance presentation this week, or this week. And our financial statements are in the annual report as well for last year. Get it? There we go. All right, and you can control it with this one.
Okay, consistent with prior years, we're just doing a very high-level brief overview of the financial results for the year. In your annual report, our full audited statements are in there for your review. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. If something comes to your mind after the meeting, please feel free to call or email. So consistent with prior years, most of our revenue comes from ISK. We have 98% from ISK and 2% from other sources, and that's actually the identical percentage that we had last year. The next few slides will drill down into the 98% and the 2%. 90% of the revenue we receive from ISK is through the grant. It's our core operations. We use it to fund our administrative expenses at the MK, for band transfers, for special programs such as special education and various initiatives within the communities. Following that, 7% is related to EPP and other one-off programs we may get funding for through ISK, or other long-term programs that we are trying to negotiate into the grant in the upcoming years. And followed by that is FNSSP and Help Desk, which represent 2% and 1% of the funding we receive from ISK. Sorry. So that is the breakdown of the revenue we receive from ISK. Looking at the other source of revenue, the bulk of our other revenue comes from the province, and it's spread throughout post-secondary, sports and recreation, Aboriginal language initiatives, and treaty education. There's been no significant shift in the percentages for each program. There was a slight increase in the percentage sports and recreation received in other sources of funding. During the 2019-20 year, they did receive funding from Sports for Social Development Canada, but the other areas are relatively consistent. Treaty education received 5% of its funding from the province. The previous year it was 8%, so no real significant fluctuations. The Next slide, grant expenditures by program areas, details how we spend the grants that we get. The bulk of it, consistent with expectations in prior years, is transferred to the communities to help with your educational expenses. We retained a portion at the MK for governance operations, which was approximately $2.5 million last year. We fund some various initiatives through post-secondary elementary. We have FNSSP, PSE, and capital. The one change that you will see if you're comparing to prior year is capital. In the 2018-19 year, we did not have much in the way of capital expenditures. We did have more in the 2019-20 year due to the Pictou Landing School. The funding that we retain at the MK is used for various areas such as wages and benefits, salary, professional development, travel. There's been no significant fluctuation compared to the prior year on where we spend the money, and the percentages are consistent. Salary and benefits is roughly half of our expense. It was 53% this year. Consistent with the prior year, I believe it was 51%. So there were no anomalies or significant fluctuations with how the MK uses the governance funding. The next slide details the expenditures for the communities. Consistent with expectations, Eskasoni does receive the highest band transfer payment given the student population level. And the last slide details the provincial tuition payments that we make to the province on behalf of the communities for students attending provincial schools. And again, no significant fluctuation from the prior year. If there's any questions? If not, I will pass it along to the next presenter. Thank you.
A great high-level summary. Up next, we have Dave Peters presenting on our performance measurement successes over the past year. And you can find this on page 21 as well in your annual report.
Yeah, thank you. Well, good day. Today we're going to talk about performance measurement and MK. Let's go. And one of the things that we managed to get a full year in, I said this last year, my last quote from my presentation from last year, and it came to fruition this year when we had pandemic and everything else. And when I started to look at what we had put in place throughout the years, and we soon found out that we had done a fairly good job of allowing our communities, our students, to start to still be in school or whatever needed to happen. And it allowed us to think outside the box to find different solutions, things that we needed to have done. So it's one of the things that keeps me working is that I'm always looking to the future. Got to understand what happens into the future. As Lorianne stated, we had a one-year strategic plan, and I had three pieces to it. One was the development of the MKSIS, or Mi'kmaq-Matnaway Student Information System. So we did a few things that year. We rebuilt the individual educational plan part. Took a lot of work, thanks to Janine and our communities that have participated for 2 full years, basically, to get this done. It is bringing some accountability and responsibility to the places that it needs it. We also did, the redesign of the capture of the data, PDFs for the directors to use or principals, and compliant to the new provincial guidelines on IEPs. We also had, some other things that needed to get done. Master commit lists on attendances, employees, year-end reporting that the communities wanted and needed. Things that are important to us. We also continue to produce our community profile for our symposium. It's an ongoing thing. We continue to talk to the principals through our own PLNs and things like that. We meet at least once, twice a year to see where we're going. And development of administrative reports for ourselves, communities, or whomever. Communities. One of the things we're trying to get communities to own and control their own information. Well, they are starting to do it. They're taking the control of it. They're taking to use it and understand it. They're being helped by consultants or whomever they wish to bring in. But the data's there, they're starting to use it. And that's the important thing. They're going to start to find out new things about themselves, about the data, and so on. We are working with communities to develop a data privacy policy. We are about halfway through that. And then, of course, communities always have input on what development goes on within MKSIS. Well, we have now, this is the Bernhardt model on education, and she talks about 4 pillars, and I call them data pillars. And we have 4. One is student demographics. We got perceptions. We got student learning, and we got processes. And as you can see, they're big circles. They intersect. There's a lot of things that can be found out about ourselves if we do the data analysis properly. In demographics, over time, demographics data indicates changes in the context of the school. As we grow and we collect this data, we start to see things like our students are graduating at the right ages. At grade 12, they're at 17 or 18 or 16 or 17 or 18. Things like that. So here are some of the highlights that we've got this year. Current enrollment is 2964. It's up from last year. Attendance rates is slightly up, 87.3. Graduation rate is down a little. We had a big one 2 years ago at 94%, 91 last year, now at 88.4. PSC enrollment is at 580, and the PSE graduates at 111. So when we look at the nominal roll, we're starting to see things just moving across the grid. We're graduating at the right times, year over year over year. The grade, you can see them start moving diagonally across this grid. Age grade. As we can see here, I don't know if you can see it, but in your report, 3 years ago we were at 18.3 for males, 18.2 for females graduating at grade 12. In 2 years we've dropped to 17.7 for female and 17.8. So we're starting to see our students be more successful. Our graduation rate, as I've already told you, we're consistent. We're in the high 80s, which is good. Attendance rates, slightly up. Now, we have the pandemic, we got 3 weeks of, I've got a quarter year because I have to do the whole year. So there is some pandemic influences that are there. June, we didn't do, so therefore, it's usually one of our worst months. So we have to sort of put an asterisk beside that. Provincial attendance, for that, what data I got from the province, was at 83.9% for last year. Here's our post-secondary. The next pillar I'm going to talk about is perception. Over time, perception can tell us about our environmental improvements. Go there. Environmental learning. We need to understand the students' and parents' community view of learning environment. We need to understand it so that when we work with them, we can help them and they can help us. Attitudes. What are the attitudes towards education within the community? We have to understand it and we have to react to it. What are the observations of the student, parents, community about education? And the fourth thing, the values and beliefs. Is the education system respecting the values and beliefs of the community? Important, because if we don't do it, we're not being true to ourselves. Student learning. Over time, student learning data will give you the information about the student's performance on different measures. Currently in this report, we only talk about the assessment testing. We have other measures, but this is the one that is in this report. The grade 6 is the only assessment we have this year. That's the only one that was written last year. It was written in end of September, early October. And as you can see, the numbers are consistent from years over. Math scores. Pillars of education, processes. We have developed processes for student information. Squiggle Park is a product that we use to capture data. We have Sprig or Undelay that captures data for us to understand how our language programs are doing. Font and Espinel, reading. Seesaw, exchange of information between students and teachers and parents. So we have a whole bunch of processes that are now in place to allow information to flow from the community to students to teachers to wherever it needs to go. So, to the future, we have a commitment, we have to meet all the challenges coming along, and it's getting harder and harder, but it is. Next year, we're only going to rate 3, 8, and 10 in our assessments. The performance measure, first year of the strategic plan, we are looking forward to increasing power of technology, helping students, teachers, and administrators and communities to reach potential. And as always, working with Datavan to continue implementation of MKSI modules based on the user input and in response to changes at the provincial and federal reporting levels. Here's a topic I haven't heard yet, but in our data world, I've got to be worried about it. Here's some of the problems associated with it. Interrupted learning, lack of preparation in parents, increased stress among teachers, increased stress among parents, increased probability of student dropout. Some of the questions we may want to answer. What has changed in education delivery since COVID crisis began? How do these changes affect the learning and the learning equity? These are questions we're going to have to start answering to understand what's going on with our children. Who is enrolled in distant learning but not participating? Who's participating in distant learning but not learning? And some of the data we may want to start collecting: student participation in all platforms of educational delivery, teachers' participation in all platforms of educational delivery, quick use of short tests for frequent measurement, just to see how they're doing. Because you've given them an education missing 3 months. So we've got to be concerned. That's what I have to say about what's on the data right now. Is there any questions you may be able to answer? No? Leaving you with this last thought. This is most important to us. We need to do this. Thank you very much.
Well, Dave. Up next, we have the Help Desk, Alan McKenzie. And in your annual report, it is on page, I'm gonna flip back a couple pages there, Alan. On page 19.
Thank you. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm going to go over 7 key areas, or 7 key highlights from the 2019-20 annual report for the Help Desk. I began in my new role in August, so I'm not taking credit for anything accomplished in this year, but I am going to report on it, and very proud of the team for what they've accomplished in the last year. So just a little bit before I get started on the effects of COVID-19, they certainly had, we were certainly had to shift very quickly into online learning, and thankfully all the measures we had in place certainly helped to transition as smooth as possible. We're certainly looking to improve things always, and we're certainly very proud that we're viewed by many as maintaining the best and the fastest and most secure First Nation network in the country across the Atlantic Canada's First Nation network. So in terms of expansion, in the 1920 fiscal year, we had three new buildings into our network. The new school in Pictou Landing, which others have mentioned, as well. 2 new treatment centers, one in Eskasoni and one in Elsipogtog. Or sorry, one new treatment center in Eskasoni, the Mi'kmaq Lodge, and we're also planning is underway for 2 new treatment centers, Elsipogtog and Tobic, as well as the new school in the planning stages in Elsipogtog. So in terms of upgrades, we're always looking to make our network faster and more secure. We've installed, we've replaced the aging Juniper firewalls to support higher bandwidth. At the moment, our fiber connectivity reaches 30 communities at a minimum speed of 30 megs and a maximum of 200. We are currently in talks with Bell to increase that minimum to 50 megs, so hopefully no timeline on that, but certainly in the on our radar for sure. Also plans in place to upgrade other various equipment, which I won't get into right now. Our network is handling approximately 5 million DNS requests per day, and that's growing all the time, so we need to expand and get ahead of all that to be prepared. In terms of bulk purchasing power, our network, all our routers, switches, Wi-Fi access points, all that is all the monthly reoccurring subscriptions, and all, that's all connected, and all we're billed by Bell and others all as a network, not individually. So that certainly is to the advantage of all communities and the help desk. Also provide various software packages like Microsoft Office and Adobe Creative Suite and so on to the communities that which would be a lot more expensive if each community was purchasing themselves. So we're happy to provide that as well. In terms of security, we've got various measures in place, including the Cisco umbrella, which provides web and content filtering for all connected devices across our network, not just education, but health and band offices as well. And we're constantly doing routine evaluations. Our team is to monitor the traffic, make sure that all of our students, staff, and so on are browsing safely, so to speak. And this just kind of hopes to give you a little bit of an idea of how our network is structured. So we've got fiber circuits into each Atlantic First Nation community. So it's not just, like I said, not just schools, but your health centers and band offices as well. So, and traffic from one sector doesn't interact with another. So all of our health data stays together, and education and so on. So that's security is certainly a certainly high priority with the help desk. Also are constantly looking to improve in the area of video conferencing. Our current Polycom Real Presence system is encrypted end to end, so all the data is maintained within our network. Very important in education and health to be for us to maintain that data on our servers, which are located at the Member2 Data Center. And we're very, very cautious of maintaining our OCAP compliance, ownership, control, access, and possession of our data. So data that's out, that's cloud-based, out in various servers like Zoom and Google Meet and so on. It's we don't have as much control over that data, but maintained in our network with Polycom Real Presence. A couple of educational video conferences we hosted this year. We had our annual Christmas concert, which we're planning again in December, date to be announced shortly. As well, we had our first ever Mi'kmaq Culture Hour video conference, which connected elders and knowledge keepers with our youth using technology, which went quite well. As well, with the help desk, we administer the Youth Skills Link program. In the 1920 year, we employed 16 youth across 6 of our communities. It's a great way to identify some great workers who have a keen interest and lots of skills in technology. And as well, it's great to provide experience for meaningful work experience for them. We're hoping that by employing some of these some of these youth, that we'll be able to employ some of those youth in the future with either MK or the help desk. And lastly, just a few words on our MDM, or mobile device management system. So we provide this service to all of our communities. We have approximately 1,800 iPads and over 1,000 Chromebooks that are all enrolled in our MDM system. So we can provide this level of security, management of apps, and security settings so that we can ensure that students are using the devices for educational purposes. That's all done remotely. So some schools can manage it themselves if they have the capacity, but for those schools that don't have the capacity, we do that in-house, which is great. And I guess, yeah, so we've got a very small staff that is very proud of the work that they've accomplished. That's our team during the 1920 year, and since then our team has grown. We've added Julian and Kim to the team, and the position I was in prior to entering the director's role, that'll be filled at some point later this fiscal year. So we'll be up to capacity again in technology integration. And I guess that's it for me. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Malalia Gellin. Up next, we have Anne, post-secondary, and she is on page. Trying to find your Anne. Oh, I didn't get
Okay, I'm not in my report, so I don't have to do my presentation.
Hey, Janai. Janai.
Okay, there it is.
There it is. Found it?
All right, we're good.
Perfect.
Is this the clicker? That's the clicker. All right. Excuse my clearing my throat. I won't talk too close to the mic. Hello, Medawalotio. So I'm Ann and I'm in charge of post-secondary. So I did pictures. I didn't do any real text. So probably our biggest accomplishment this year was one, surviving COVID. I acknowledge everybody and the stress of COVID, of what we're going through in Nova Scotia. I mean, we always go through it. That racism has been there all along, and that hatred. But right now it's just out there. So I want to acknowledge people and from a place of love. And so I know, you know, we're not, I don't think, and our ancestors are with us. So after that, my biggest accomplishment was the ECE workplace pilot. So I don't know if you guys remember this, but last year, I remember, I was like, oh my God, we finally started after talking about it for what felt like forever. I was so happy. And so we started out with 16 students, starting from Yarmouth all the way to Membertou. And 13 graduated, so that's 81 point something %. I should have asked Dave. So super happy. We're having our closing ceremony. Really can't call it a graduation banquet on Saturday. So super excited and happy for those individuals. All women, 13 started with their level 1 ECE, and the 12 didn't have any formal training. And today we have 13 with a level 2 early childhood educator from a Mi'kmaq perspective. So we did a lot of changes to the curriculum, so that's been a tremendous success. And so that's the program in Wamatkook. That's still going, and that's not our program, but the program we did, the workplace pilot, helped inform a lot of what they implemented. So that's our, I was supposed to take this picture out. That's our kids, I think it's repeated twice in my slide deck. But that's Kids at our trades fair. So we did something different this year. At the summer games, it's so different now, right? I'm talking about, seems like 20 years ago. But this was 2019. We had the trailer at the summer games to try and expose more people to the trades. So there's my son. And so we had kids at the welding camp. So we did 2 welding camps last year, one in Yarmouth and one at Strait campus. And so from the welding camp, we had 2 of our individuals, my son and Cher's daughter, give a talk. So it was their first conference panel question and answer thing. And they spoke about the welding camp. And they asked, what was your favorite part of the welding camp? And for them, it was the cultural activities and the spearing. So at the welding camp, we built, kids did, eel spears, and they went eeling that night. We've yet to catch anything, so maybe COVID will give us good luck, and next year we'll catch eels with our eel spears. So our graduation, we had our, immersion kids perform at the CBU graduation. So that's always exciting. We did our transitions conference again. Again, that was, we're still struggling with that, really. To be honest, we don't get a lot of students interested. And I'm thinking, we're trying to re-examine what that looks like. And, our intent is not to have students feel that they're not enough And so we are working around that to be more that, you know, I don't know. But that idea, and it's always one of the priority areas at symposium planning and strategic planning, but we don't get good intake from students. So something is missing, so we're always looking for ideas. So if you know, let me know. So they were making bath bombs. It was lots of fun. It was at Acadia University. More welding camp, our elder, Fudd. I'm always surprised by Fudd. I was, when they recommended Fudd, I was like a little leery. I'm like, he seems kind of grumpy, but he was phenomenal with the kids. They loved him, and he loved them, so I'm not always right. Did I say that out loud? Patty, don't include that in the minutes. So one of the work from other pictures, this was a fun day. That was the Joint Working Committee. I think that's what it was. I see Marlene. Yeah, that was the Joint Working Committee with NSCC and our Mi'kmaq partners, communities and organizations, and we meet on a monthly basis. And that was from recommendations we had several years ago from our meeting in Wamitguk to help develop and deepen that relationship with NSCC. So that's still ongoing, and that was a really good meeting. We got to, I don't know, it was about research and development anyways. And so we did another conference. Again, people are sitting so close. This was at St. Mary's, and we were looking at identity and you know, who Mi'kmaq say, or who Olnu say are Olnu. And so we had Grand Captain, we had academics Duma Young speak, and people from different organizations speaking about identity from a Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, PEI, and Newfoundland perspective. So those are little kids. So we took parents and young children to the trades hall last summer. Took two buses. The one time I got on a bus, it broke down at the McDonald's in Truro. Never get on a bus again. And more welding camp pictures. Our summer game show chief, Debbie, in her high heels. We couldn't get a hard hat on her that day. So as much as we tried, yeah. Those look pretty high, chief, so, but I won't argue. And more trades fair pictures, and more that's the one I was supposed to take out earlier. And so some work with our post-secondary advisors. I always credit the work they do. I really do, right on their shoulders for the work that they work with our students at their campuses. And without them, honest to God, our students wouldn't have somebody to talk to, wouldn't have somebody to navigate them in the right direction. Sometimes they wouldn't have lunch money, and they're able to do that. So a tremendous resource we have at each of the universities and colleges here in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, PEI, and Newfoundland. And so we had, that day we had an elder from Elsipogtog, Noumilier, talking about, I don't know, he was teaching us. And so we had the guidance counselors do a session again to look at exposing students more to differences in interest. And, you know, not everybody is that a ringer? Am I done? I'm almost done. And so those are guidance counselors. I think we invited NEOs, and there's like a bunch of people. So Dal Medical School, so we met with Dal Medical School because we want more doctors. And so we're working with, Blair was like, you have office space at Dal Medical School. I'm there so often. So directors had an opportunity to meet with the dean and different people. And we actually toured like the training area. We got to see like dead bodies. No, we didn't see dead bodies. But we got to see like fake bodies Like, where are the holes? No, I'm just kidding. We weren't saying that. And so this was our kind of our last ECE get together, and this was March 4 or 5, and it was just before like the whole world shut down. So that picture like makes me cry almost, because we're all so happy and sitting together and breathing in each other's space. Anyways, so I know, right? It was like March 4 too, so it was right there. We're right at the doorstep. And so in the midst of Escazoni's lockdown, I don't know if this was in the lockdown or if it was just after, we signed a CBU diversity agreement with CBU, and so I think they had enough for 17 students to take three credit courses and for books and supplies. And here's another picture. That's the newest president at St. FX. His name escapes me, Jeff. Andy Haken. Gatchaman. Bossy Gatchaman Uwisi has a strong Gatchaman accent. I don't know if it's actually Gatchaman, but but he seems like a really good guy. So he was meeting with the students, and they were lobbying and throwing ideas at him. So it was a good day. And so this is just a picture I took of where whatchamacallit is from. Maho, a hockey player, Ontario. Oh shoot, he used to play for the Islanders. Ted Nolan, on Ted Nolan, Grand River. So they have this as Indian land. So walalio akasalona. So I'm done. Thank you.
I always laugh when Anne speaks. She makes me laugh. I loved your pictures, Anne. Simpler times, and of course, very much miss those times. Up next, we have Healthy and Active Living. Tex Marshall is here, and that is on page 10 of your annual report.
Thank you, Blair. It's nice to see everyone again. I don't see you much. It's great to see the Chiefs especially, and pardon me if I'm a little excited. This is the first time I've worn pants since March. I've been in jogging pants for 7 months, so. Chief Leroy, get your mind out of the gutter, please. So let's see if I can work this fancy technology, this clicker here. Hey, it worked. Okay, so reflecting back on the past year, since a year ago this time, so we were surging into the winter a year ago, and our events and initiatives and activities in Sport and Rec were moving along quite nicely. And of course, we had Christmas, and then after Christmas, and then March hit, and then boom, COVID-19, which, as we all are well aware, affected our communities, our province, country, the world essentially, and everything was at a standstill. Sport and recreation itself is extra vulnerable with regards to parameters around health, because there's a lot of touch, there's a lot of activity that is not conducive to COVID-19 restrictive parameters. So we basically had to shut down our sports event schedule for the rest of the year back in March. All events and activities that we had planned with coaching development and our PD sessions with the teachers were all shut down. So basically we were pretty much crippled by COVID-19. But so my presentation is going to focus on the year forward and moving forward and picking up the pieces and providing the opportunities and initiatives that we can do. So I met with the phys ed teachers back in June, and just to see where they were at with online learning, where our schools were closed down. And a lot of them were involved in a Seesaw program. I think Dave mentioned that a little bit, but the Seesaw program is something that phys ed teachers have utilized for online learning with the kids. And so there was a great deal of uncertainty back in June on whether or not the kids would be back in the classrooms or if the teachers would this past September. So we got together again towards the end of August just to look at an inventory of online learning that we could do. So we came up with some planning, and then lo and behold, by the time the end of August hit, it was planned that the schools would reopen. So with the schools reopening and with respect to the restrictions and the ease of restrictions from Dr. Strang in Nova Scotia, but with regard to sport and recreation, I always take into consideration the fact that our communities are so much more vulnerable within the health sector. We're susceptible to health issues a lot more than mainstream society. There's a greater risk. So we're extra vigilant with whether or not we're going to bring programming in. So we had decided that the sports event schedule will be put on hold for at least a time. So in meeting and getting feedback from the education directors, they've guided us to surge towards having the events, but starting around March, giving it time to settle in. So we are going to have a sports event schedule starting in March, physical schedule, but what we're basically going to do in January and February in the winter months is have online events. So one of the things we have planned with our MK schools is free throw competitions in the sport of basketball. And these are going to be done online. So each one of the schools will have their own competitions, and then once they get the winner or the top performer, through the magic of JR and Julian and the help desk, we're going to do an online competition in January in 3 levels: elementary, middle school, and high school. So each school will have their top free throw basketball participant, and we'll have a competition online. And the students will be awarded medals for gold, silver, and bronze. So that's something we're planning. So we're actually kind of seizing the opportunity of COVID restrictions to do online events that we haven't done before. Traditionally, what we've done with the sports events in January and February is just shut down because we've had too many cancellations due to weather in the past. So now that we're doing it online, it's something that we're going to continue to do. So we've actually benefited a little bit from the COVID challenges that we've had in this area. So we're looking forward to that. I'm a little bit excited about it myself. So I'll wear pants again to those events. So the physical events will start in March, like I said, and they'll be abbreviated. It won't be a full schedule. There'll be less events. And of course, all of the health parameters under the province and Dr. Strang will be adhered to, for sure. So switching to leadership training and professional development. So one of the things that we received through the MK strategic planning session last spring was the fact that we need to do a little bit more effort in providing opportunities for our girls, our female students. So we are planning a girls leadership weekend in the month of November, and we're partnering with MK Wellness Coordinator Becky Sirocco on that. So I think it's going to be a wonderful opportunity for the girls to have their own weekend where we can do leadership training in various capacities. So something new that we're doing. The MK Phys Ed teachers, of course, will be at St. FX on December 3rd and 4th doing training and planning the event schedule, and of course the online events. And then further to that, we will be having our annual MK Sports Summit right here in this hotel in November, the 23rd to the 25th. And all of the MPALs will be there, a great partnership with the MPALs. And also there'll be community representatives from each one of the communities in Nova Scotia at that Sports Summit. Of note is the fact that we usually have our annual sport awards and banquet. We're not going to have one this year because of COVID. We really can't fairly present awards when seasons were cut short. So it's not fair to all the athletes, so we're going to table the sport awards till a year from now, hopefully anyway. So with leadership training continued and looking at our partnerships, we've partnered with Sport Nova Scotia, and we're implementing the first ever Black and Indigenous coach mentorship program within the province, and that's the first one of its kind in the country. So we have 10 Mi'kmaq coaches that are involved in a program that's going to be over 2 years, and they will mentor under professional coaches. So that's actually starting this weekend here in Halifax, where they're going to have training sessions and they will build rapport and friendships with the Black coaches from the province. So something that we're really excited about also. It's, like I said, unprecedented precedent in the country. So it's a 2-year program. So the next one we have is high performance sport, and we're implementing a Mi'kmaq Sport Science program through another partnership with Canadian Sports Centre Atlantic. So those of you that are not familiar with Canadian Sports Centre, we've partnered in the past with them with our NAIG athletes. And what Sports Centre Atlantic does, they're based out of the Canada Game Centre across the water here in Halifax. And they train nationally carded athletes here in Halifax. So we're partnering with them, and they're going to do training of our own athletes, high performance athletes, in all the aspects you might see listed there, like it'll be the athletes and coaches, and it includes mental training, nutrition, exercise, physiology planning, strength and conditioning, as well as sport specific skill training. So it's a really tremendous opportunity with the partnership with them, and so I look forward to that over the coming months. So switching to NAIG, so NAIG Council deliberated a couple weeks ago, and they passed a resolution that NAIG has been postponed till 2023. So it's not happening next summer in 2021. The medical community is just not ready to host NAIG, and there's too much uncertainty right now with COVID still in place. So NAIG Council deliberated, and they thought rather than announce 2022, they wanted to go with a safer bet with 2023. So that's not public knowledge yet, but there hasn't been an official announcement, but now you all know that NAIG will be in 2023. And the fundamental issue with regards to NAIG is the age classifications. So if they go with the original ages, basically the kids would be 23 years old. So it's something that they have to consider, and they're going to deliberate on that, and we should have an answer about that in about a week's time. I think they're meeting next week. So the reason why we haven't announced it to have NAIG in 2023 is because the province hasn't committed the addendum funding yet. So the province needs to ante up for extra funding to host NAIG in 2023. And NAIG Council has given the funding partners a deadline of December 1st. So if the province does not commit to the funding by December 1st, then NAIG Council will reopen the bid process, and NAIG will happen somewhere else, so just for your information. So is there any questions? So in the spirit of Halloween, in the month of October, and I want to thank you all for your attention to me yapping for the past few minutes, but just want to leave you with one thing. With Halloween coming up, don't be cruel. Well, adios.
I thought he would leave like, that's so funny. TCB, taking care of business. What's that? Is he wearing pants in that picture? I don't know. Are we okay? Okay. Up next, we have Janine Marshall, and we're just setting up for her presentation. Should be, do you want to do a sound test?
We're trying to make the audio better for the other room.
Oh, right, yeah. And this is on page 12 of the annual report for student services. Do you want the mic? Do you need this?
Did you want to talk?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so maybe we'll just hand Julian the mic.
Okay. So Julian, you'll need the mic when we play that, right? Okay. So I think there was a question if Tex was wearing pants in that picture, and as his partner, I can verify that he was. It was actually it was a one-piece onesie. A onesie? Yeah. And when I first brought it home, he was like, "I'm not flipping wearing that," and I was like, "Oh yes, you are." And at the time, he had requests from elders to like come and visit and get shots with Elvis. So, anyways, it's kind of a family joke that Elvis makes an appearance once a year at Halloween. So we'll see if he makes his appearance this year. We haven't decided on family costumes. So I just wanted to kind of briefly share a bit of some student services highlights this year. Like every other program, it was, I think that everyone else shared today, there was quite a few ups and downs. In particular, my health was a fun year this year, so I'm glad to be back to work and working again. But I did want to share one of many highlights from student services, and that was a pilot project that we did with regards to an EPP project. But before doing that, I thought it'd be important to kind of talk about some of the positives that came from COVID. We were able to train 80 teacher assistants from across our family of schools during COVID. And nothing like a crash course in about four different online learning opportunities, and gathering people together and getting and training teacher assistants in your driveway during a lockdown. So it was quite interesting, and the engagement was quite interesting. We launched a online workshop. We finished all of the TA modules that we were hoping to do this school year, and we thought it appropriate to launch the module on self-care, especially during COVID and lockdown. So you would see some of our TAs in their pajamas at home and engaging and practicing in meditation and learning a bit of self-care that they in fact gain strategies on to hopefully transition kids back to some sort of classroom this September. So it's quite interesting the types of work that we did that way. We have ongoing partnerships with Nova Scotia Early Childhood, and we've seen those partnerships expand, and students that wouldn't have normally received services are now getting in-home services virtually, online, wherever family is able to gather and meet and learn strategies they're learning. And it's quite interesting. We also have a formal partnership with Autism Nova Scotia, and having representation on that board as the first Mi'kmaq in this province on that provincial board has been really helpful to gain awareness to, quite frankly, an alarming statistic in our communities. So the national statistic for autism in Canada is 1 in 66, and we're hoping over the next 6 months or so to get better data on the number of students in our communities that are affected by autism. The numbers are increasing, and the variances or the reasons why we don't know. So that it's very timely in the midst of a pandemic to really look at the possibility of studying our own people and looking at numbers, because our communities need to be prepared. You as leaders need to be prepared for these kids and their families, because it's a lifelong commitment. And so it got me thinking outside the box. When we think about culture and language and inclusion, we sometimes think of these things in silos, and they're quite integrated. As an ONU person, when we talk about our special needs individuals, they're never excluded. They're always a part of everything we do. So I started thinking about curriculum and programs and partnerships in a different way, and put together quite a broad description of an EPP project that I loosely called Master Cultural Apprentice. And I reached out to all of the public school boards and said, can you identify teachers in your school or leaders of culturally responsive pedagogy or leaders in inclusion that would like to learn in the spirit of friendship and harmony, of learning together from our culture, from our knowledge keepers and that sort of thing. So the video you're about to see is just a snapshot or highlight reel of one of our weekends. We've been able to gather a bit since that time, virtually. We've done 2 weekends, and there's about 17 educators from both the MK family of schools and public school teachers from around the province that are participating in this project. So every weekend we had a variety of first-hand knowledge keepers. The first weekend was around teachings around Nedigalimk, and we looked at the sustainability of what it means to be in balance with the environment. And so this was a partnership with my program and the Red Road Project and our provincial counterparts as well. So this video that you're about to watch is a highlight reel from our weekend 2, which was at Debert. And typically in the middle of winter, we have a midwinter feast. And so these are teachings around midwinter feasts and sort of raising our vibrations. Had we known how high we would have had to raise our vibrations prior to COVID, I think we should have turned it into a week, Julian. But I really want to give acknowledgement to Julian. We had cameras rolling for the entire weekend, and to really scope this down into 5 minutes, because they were like, make sure you have 10 minutes, no more than 10 minutes. So I just wanted to highlight this continuing project. Because of COVID, we paused it, and we're about to resume it, and we'll be gathering and continuing. So the last part of this project is we are going to gather again and go back to our provincial teachers and bring our MK teachers together and look at all of the current issues that we're now faced with, and what does that mean in the spirit of treaty education, in the spirit of inclusion, and what that can look like in the classroom if I'm a public school teacher or if I'm a teacher in MK school. So that's the, and then over the winter we'll be designing all kinds of lessons and curriculum and things like that. So it's, they're glad I'm back, I'm glad to be back, and I'm very proud to share this little highlight reel. Walanio. Oh, sorry, Julie. Okay. Thanks.
I won't be able to dance and sing at the same time, though. Ready? Jugaluk, Gwenji Juo, Jugaluk,
So we'll be starting that work up again shortly and finishing off the project, but you know, this was probably the first time that we've had provincial teachers and MK teachers coming together over weekends. And it was quite an experience, and a lot of work and a lot of video. So, and a lot more work ahead of us. So, Walalio.
I love that video. So, loving the pictures of 1819. I want to introduce to you, Shara distributed to your tables, the strategic plan for the next 5 years. But we have 10-year goals in here. And I'm just going to read pieces of this, which I think are very powerful. And again, really emphasize who we are, how we've gotten here, and where we're going to take our communities and our children and our grandchildren. The story of MK is a powerful one. It offers validation of the Mi'kmaq Nation's vision of self-determination in making sure our children and youth get the best possible start and can achieve their dreams unimpeded. Powerful message. So 23 years ago, decision makers around the table, some of them are here still today, made that leap and really wanted to take control and take control over education for our communities. And so here we are 23 years later, promoting our success, not just here locally within our communities, but nationally and internationally. And so this next planning stage and this next planning context is just that, reimagining MK. This new strategic plan is developed with all of you and with all of the communities. We gave a lot of space for communities to come together to tell us where MK needs to go and how we're going to get there together. On page 8, you'll see the new vision for MK. And MK is a successful, holistic, lifelong journey rooted in Mi'kmaq language and culture. Our mission over the next 5 years, we will do the following. Our values, again, rooted in the 7 sacred teachings, but not neglecting as well the well-being of all. Our 4 goals, our most important goal, serving communities. Our second goal, nurturing the spirit of all learners. Reimagining MK for the future, adapting through technology, adapting everything we have through optimum technology and network. And of course, Dandeli Ilnotig, it's not even translated. Ilnotig, the way we speak, the way we act, the way we are proud to be who we are. And we want all of our children and our communities and their parents to be proud of that. So those are the 4 goals, and we have in total 15 objectives. And so this is what we set out to accomplish over the next 3 years. Certainly, we've created a roadmap for 3 years, but this is the 10-year vision at this time. And there's going to be, of course, on page 11, here's where we are in 2025. First and foremost, MK remains the Canadian leader in First Nation education. Set the bar higher. We will have an Ulnu College. More land-based educational and experiential learning opportunities. We will have Mi'kmaq doctors, right, Em?
Yep, working on it every Monday, 5 to 7.
Our student data again, more broadly and widely used as an effective tool to guide instruction and to measure results. Greater collaboration, and in 5 years, we will be on the strong path to revitalizing our language in our communities. We called upon the Premier today, to keep his promise from 2018 in the development of the language legislation. We reminded him today of his promises. We have, of course, did our engagement with communities. We came out with 28 guiding principles to that legislation, and we're ready. And so we want the province to meet us and to develop language legislation, co-develop again. So this is what I'd like to share today. I'd like to thank all the presentations. Again, it seems so far away ago that we were breathing the same air, as Anne likes to say, but we'll get there. We'll get there again. And what the staff have been providing in terms of opportunities through virtual learning is unbelievable. And how unbelievable our teachers are in communities. I want to give a special shout out to the principals and the directors of education in your communities who have been so committed to figuring out how best we deliver education, not just in person, in regular times, but also virtually. Always student success on top of mind. And so I'd like to thank them. They're in the other room. But they are always, they're so dedicated to what they do, and they see the potential and possibility in each and every individual student. Last but not least, I'd like to thank JR and Julian for, again, doing what you do best, stepping up your technology game and being able to provide this environment and this context of the meeting to not just our neighbors next door, the directors, but to our homes. And so this is something really brand new, and I think it's something that parents and our children, our stakeholders, teachers can learn to appreciate. So we'll allow the... And I'm going to ask Chief Leroy to come up to say some closing remarks, and we will get on our way. It's a busy week, I know.
Okay, a lot of y'all, thank you directors who are online, and everybody, other chiefs here, and our staff. I want to commend you all with the awesome work you've been doing, where MK is heading, and especially during this pandemic. And I just want to acknowledge all the directors and principals for working together to have a very safe environment during this pandemic. And I was on call this morning actually with Dr. Strand. I don't know if other chiefs are on. I was on there anyway, and how they're going to still keep the Atlantic bubble, but I just want to mention that Dr. Strand and their government are still committed working with the schools and with us as well, with the leadership, to make sure that we pull through this pandemic. And if there's some sort of threats or cases going up, that we will act accordingly and safely with the plans that we have in our communities. So it's really important that we continue that discussion with the directors and of a protocol and steps moving forward of how we deal with if, let's say, the cases start rising in our communities. When do we act in some sort? So I just want to commend you all, the leadership, the chiefs, and everybody that during this pandemic is still there. And Dr. Strand said it might be here another couple of years, and it's still scary stuff, but the Atlantic bubble is still safe, and especially here in Nova Scotia, in our communities. I know that, actually I was speaking with Wab Kinew there tonight. He's a opposition leader in Manitoba, provincial government, and he was telling me that there's many cases in the First Nation community over there. They're having a really tough time. I was also speaking with the Chief Mark at Six Nations. Cases are going up around their community. They're having a really tough go. and Nistigos as well. I'm not sure if there's any cases in the community, but last I knew that they were getting tested and they're still waiting. So it's really important. This virus is just everywhere, and we need to stay vigilant and continue to protect our schools. And you guys are all doing a great job. The plans that were presented a couple months ago, or was it last month? And these plans are working quite well. So, William and Blair and your team, great job. And I want to call upon the Grand Chief to do the closing prayer. Motion to adjourn as well. Okay, Chief Carroll, Chief Norman, all in favor, please say aye. Okay.
Was a good overall presentation, Gil. Well, thank you. Well, I'll say because it's important. Like, Mi'kmaq education. Historically, all our education was to our language, Mi'kmaq language. You learned everything in our language. It was in the very fabric of our language, all our education. And all the, for generations and generations, was oral history, and it was all carried through in our language. So it's important. So I'm going to pray in Mi'kmaq. But people ask about it, he will let them know what I said. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Gizuk, wala liye lagisko nagwe Daniel nimuyak. Kaluke nagwe. Edaway, so glukun, dan deroltie gisko. Dan delbenwage Gizuk. Chulai kan sabad menen na dan deli gindema sit kamo emek nige. Edaway down inganalu sige. Ganamano. Wemeno raw gizganamu si gizgu guchenwai. Tahwe megide demu. Dan del ganama lukti. Mulgidano, Sescoltino, Bepsdedano, Saltutne. Kizu Walalir, Tandelian Nemuya, Melgidane. Madamaunuda, Mulgidane, Nige, Tandel Sespana, Sithamu, Walagamikano. Kizu So will Maliaminen, Udan Menau, Kisagug, Kigumana, Kinijanna, Mamsagano, Kisko, Amenagwil, Washpudal, Naliach. Thank you.
Well, as you saw, and everybody drive safe. Ticks, keep your pants on. What else?
No bags this year, but unwrap those cups. They're very special.